Okay, here we go.
Good evening. We're doing a nighttime shoot.
Nighttime shoot. It's after midnight.
Yeah.
The stereo just seems to have...
We've blown the stereo up.
We've blown it up. So we've had to curtail the session.
Yeah.
So...
Overheated amp.
Yeah. Very hot amp. Anyway, here we are. It's we're having a very nice late summer here in the UK. And
We've had one day of it.
That's true. Only one day so far.
But it will stay with us, I think.
Bank holiday weekend, so a couple more days of holidays. Just to say, John and I, not that anyone's probably even going to see this, and if they do, they're not going to be close to Ramsgate tomorrow morning at 11. So Sunday morning at 11 in Ramsgate, Vinyl Head Record Shop, John and I will be DJing live.
Yeah.
And from the 4th of September, I will be doing a fortnightly radio show on Creek FM, which I'll put the address on the bottom of the
Absolutely.
this video. Anyway,
so if anyone flies in tomorrow from Boston or anywhere else, we'll pick you up at the airport. So
that's it. Yeah. Right. Well, we kicked off with a Roy Ayers track. This is Rare, an album which captures a lot of classic Roy Ayers tunes, and we listened to a very short but very powerful groove called Life Is Just a Moment Part 2, which is actually from his album Mystic Voyage, or Mystic Voyager?
Mystic Voyage, I think.
Mystic Voyage. Yeah, just a really lovely groove. Lovely
and there are two good compilations, Rare and Rare 2. Which were both really good collections.
Yeah, they are. There's good stuff on there. Yeah.
I then went for Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up, which I only recently remembered is nestling on side 4 of Marvin Gaye's Live at the Palladium. So there's a whole side extended version of tune Got to Give It Up, which was a single, I think, isn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of classic. Kind of, I guess it's more of an early 80s kind of sound for Marvin rather than, but it's a big dance tune, and this has got the full length version on this, and you can pay a fortune for the 12-inch, so you actually might as well go and buy this, which has also got some good stuff on it anyway.
Sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
So that kind of got us into a bit of a 12-inch mood, and I played this, which has just been reissued on Moonglow Records. And it's the band called Barely Breaking Even. No, it's not the band called Barely Breaking Even. The track's called Barely Breaking Even. And the band is the Universal Robot Band, which is basically a sort of Leroy Burgess spin-off outfit. And we listened to the John Morales 12 minutes 45 seconds super long disco mix.
Yeah.
Fantastic track.
Which I think we faded before it got just down to a cowbell.
We did.
Which was...
As John said, Barely Breaking Even, it actually inspired the BBE record label.
Yeah.
That's how good this track is.
Definitely.
Get it.
Now I pulled this one single out and played it 3 times now. So I played different tracks off it, and this is my last showing of this. But it's also got 3 great tracks on it, and I played the track Haven't You Heard, which comes off the album Straight from the Heart. Patrice Rushen. This is, if you see this for about 5p, which is what it costs, it's like having a compilation actually of 3 of the best tracks of Patrice Rushen on there. So Patrice Rushen, jazz funk protege, early 70s.
Yeah.
Prince always tried to want to get her in his band, if not his bed, I think. Actually, I'm not sure, but he was very keen on her, put it like that.
Then we had another 12-inch special 12-inch disco mix, a rare Kudu 12-inch, and it was Idris Muhammad, and it's the track called Could Heaven Ever Be Like This? And it really is a great sort of proper fusion of disco, jazz and funk, but it's not particularly jazz funk, it is that kind of mix.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Some lovely harmonies, some lovely soloing, and also some really kind of minimal stripping down in the mix. It's a great track.
It just, of course, out of New Orleans. So it's got that kind of you speeded up version of that kind of second line kind of sound to him as well. Yeah, went for a kind of slightly unsung Herbie Hancock record.
Very unsung.
Feet Don't Fail Me Now, and played the track from that called Trust Me, which has got a vocoder vocal from Herbie, which were very hip at that time, and of course very hip now again. Actually. And yeah, it's a kind of, it's not as great as the classic Headhunters period, this record. But there's some good stuff on all of these albums from the late 70s and early 80s, actually.
There's always good
always
tracks.
worth picking
Always
around.
worth picking up.
And given that you can pick them up for so little money,
Yeah.
I'd always recommend picking them up.
Definitely. Staying in that kind of proper fusion between jazz, boogie, funk, we listened to a track which is very aptly named Joyous. It starts kind of ecstatically with some sort of free-blowing sax, and the track is called Joyous. The band is called Pleasure. It's produced by Wayne Henderson, who was with the Crusaders, who also worked with Side Effect.
And Roy Ayers, of course.
And Roy Ayers.
Yeah.
This is a great sort of rare groove compilation called Do It Fluid that came out in the mid-80s. With some lovely tunes. Patrice Rushen appears again, actually.
Yeah.
Johnny Hammond, Blackbirds, the Three Pieces. Great.
Yeah.
Really good.
There's long been a kind of theory of mine that we're really good at compilations in the UK. We actually do really good ones, actually. And that was a classic, I think.
That is a
actually.
classic.
Very good sleeve notes on that by a friend called Paul Gilroy. Seamlessly onto the Crusaders, really, with Wayne Henderson, of course. And played the track Spiral off the Southern Nights, which is just a fantastic, just kind of high tempo. It's almost frenzied, actually, in a way. It's very, very just a great funk tune, really, with an amazing guitar solo from Larry Carlton, which is probably in that kind of top 10 guitar solos.
And a fantastic bass solo.
Great bass solo as well.
Great drumming.
Great drumming. Crusader, you really can't go wrong with the Crusaders unless you get into things started getting a bit dodgy in the 80s, but really anything before then is just absolutely fantastic. Really. Great band. Unpretentious, just good music, really.
Big faves of Ben Costello.
Good.
Be nice to see you again, Ben.
Yeah, Ben.
We were saying that the feel sounded a bit like Steely Dan, and obviously Larry Carlton
And Joe Sample.
And Joe Sample did lots of work with Steely Dan. But actually I picked an early Steely Dan album. Is this their first?
Second.
Countdown to Ecstasy. Absolutely brilliant. And one of my favourite tracks, which is Your Gold Teeth, which they do a different version of on Katie Lyde. But brilliant. Just guitar solos that you can sing along to. Some great keyboard playing as well.
Word is that Donald Fagen's got his own band touring at the moment, and he's basically now replaced a lot of very seasoned kind of session guys with a bunch of 20-year-olds really in the new band, and they're sounding very much like the band did at that time. So from Steely Dan to Donald Fagen, actually, and as it says on the front, founder member of Steely Dan. His first solo album, The Night Fly, played the track IGY, which is the first track off it, which is a kind of reggae influence thing, but which is usually a disaster. Usually, when Americans play reggae, it's usually not good news. Actually,
it is very cod.
It's very cod, but it actually is a great track with some great singing, and a great album. And there's the most expensive MFSL reissue of The Night Flight coming out on double 45 RPM vinyl for $100, I think. But actually, to be honest, this sounds great.
Sounds very good. Very good. We took a break.
Yeah.
I came back with a very nice sweet, actually, which included salted caramel ice cream, raspberries, blueberries, toasted hazelnuts, and hemp seeds.
Yeah, it was very, very fun.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a number of tributes to people who've passed on recently, and we couldn't escape without a bit of Glen Campbell. obviously a style icon for both John and myself.
Completely.
And The Wichita Lineman, which actually I have to say the production is
Sounded
stunning,
incredible,
absolutely brilliant, and a great track. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was Glen.
Then went.
Well,
I
Glen
did a bit more. Did a bit more Glen.
Kept popping up.
My only CD of the night, actually, which was in fact the only CD at all of the night,
Yes.
actually, which was from a good compilation double from his Capital years, Glen Campbell's Capital years, and I played the track which I think is called "Guess I'm Dumb," which was him where he worked with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. It's quite a rare track, actually, quite difficult to find on albums. It's hidden away on the various compilations, but a very interesting kind of track, actually. Kind of could almost kind of indicates another direction that he could have gone in, really, rather than the country kind of pop ballad thing. But anyway, great artist, even if he was a Republican.
And the Beach Boys connection carried on with this album. The album Surfs Up, and the track Surfs Up, which John reckoned might even had Glen Campbell on it.
I think he probably didn't, come to think of it. It was probably too late, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But he was, because Glen Campbell was part of the whole Wrecking Crew thing. So I think he was on. Pet Sounds.
I mean, this is just a fantastic track.
Great record. Yeah.
Very strange,
Yeah.
but really great. Yeah.
Couldn't really particularly follow the Beach Boys with what I had in the box, but I went for one of my favourite records, actually. Played track off, played the Sound of Love off, no, it doesn't matter, off Stephen Still's Manassas album, which was kind of a band he put together after the whole Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young thing, with Chris Hillman, Al Perkins, Joe Lara, Dallas Taylor and people. Great band, actually. And they made a couple of records. The second one really doesn't live up to the first one at all. This was the double album, which has basically every song is brilliant on it, actually. And it kind of moves from different styles, from country to Latin to kind of rock and so forth. It's a very good record. One of my favourites.
And you should mention that little extra story you said, John.
What was that?
That you actually think this is your...
Oh yeah, I had a very weird feeling. I just basically bought this back on vinyl recently, and I have a feeling it might actually been the copy that was stolen from me about 25 years ago. Actually, it's got a label on the front, which I certainly remember being there before, and one on the back, which looks very much like. So I might have ended up buying back my own record. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's an interesting fantasy. And also there are a couple of crackles and scratches on it, which sound very similar to what it sounded like before.
Certainly could be the same pressing.
It certainly could be. Oh, it's definitely the same pressing. I think,
Followed that up with one of my favourite albums.
One of mine too, I think.
David Crosby's If Only I Can Remember My Name. And the epic track, which is called Cowboy Movie, which features Jerry Garcia, we think Phil Lesh on the bass,
And Yul Makakana.
on the second guitar. I've actually just ordered a live David Crosby being backed by the Grateful Dead album.
Have you?
That's just come out.
Didn't even know about that.
No, I just discovered it in Record Collector. So
Is it meant to be good?
yeah. The sound quality is not meant to be incredible, but,
Okay.
but it certainly sounds interesting to
I
me.
think I might have a bootleg, actually.
Really?
Of that. Yeah. So we left California and moved to London, really, with Fairport Convention's Unhalf Bricking record, which is their second or third record. Third. It was their third album. And played the absolutely classic track, Who Knows Where the Time Goes, which was written by Sandy Denny and features her wonderful vocals.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't heard Sandy Denny, she's an absolutely amazing singer.
Yeah.
She sounds like the sound's kind of emanating out of her rather than
Really pure,
very
beautiful,
pure kind of
ethereal voice.
And you're with Fairport Convention, you're talking kind of obviously a kind of folky folk rock kind of thing. But this was before they went into the very, very heavy, heavier kind of traditional orientated stuff. And great album.
I think I've shown this fairly recently, but I just picked up a new pressing. I just love this first Steve Winwood solo album, just called Steve Winwood. backed by a fantastic rhythm section which feature Andy Newmark and Willie Weeks on the drums and the bass, and the track is Hold On. I mean, every track is a winner on here. It's really very underrated album, and I can tell you can pick it up very cheap. So pick it up, people.
Yeah.
If you like Traffic and you like Steve Winwood,
Yeah.
this is great.
I'm not sure quite why I went from Steve Winwood to Paul Simon. I don't know what it was. Maybe something about the sound, but I think we've never played Paul Simon in all of our sessions in 30 years, or however it's been actually. But played 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, which is a kind of classic track with some classic drumming from Steve Gadd,
Yes.
of course, as well, which
Reappears shortly.
which there must be hundreds of YouTube videos up how to play that particular drumming.
Lovely feel.
Yeah.
I went on holiday to Somerset a couple of weeks back and discovered a brand new record shop in a lovely little town called Bridport, and picked up Norman Commoner's You Are My Starship there. Very, very fetching outfit Norman's got on there.
Definitely. We'll both be wearing that tomorrow, actually.
We will, yeah. And the title track was the track we played, You Are My Starship, which is written, I think, by Michael Henderson, the bass player in that sort of early 70s Miles period. Who's also got a fantastic voice. Really beautiful stuff, actually. It's a good album, this. Yeah.
And he hadn't actually even started singing until he left Miles. So
No.
kind of incredible. Thinking of people with great voices went for, as they were called in the UK, the Detroit Spinners, but as they were called in America, the Spinners. They couldn't be called the Spinners in the UK because there was a dreadful folk band
Yes.
who wore kind of cardigans, I seem to remember, actually, called the Spinners in the UK. So they had to be called it. And
their Spinners are classic charity shop
they were
records.
Yeah.
There's always a Spinners album.
Yeah, and
or
their
two.
cardigans are probably in there as well, I think. And yeah, so Detroit Spinners is featuring the amazing singer Felipe Wynne, who's a kind of gorgeous voice as well. Production by Tom Bell, Laura Creed. Can't lose, really.
No.
I always think this kind of music's a bit like being nourished, actually. I always think kind of soul vocal groups is just like kind of food for them.
Yeah, and always beautiful songs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another album I picked up very cheap. I'd never seen it before.
Amazing, yeah.
It's a Gladys Knight and the Pips album called Second Anniversary. There's even a poster of Gladys inside it.
Is there?
Yeah. And there's just an incredible cover version of Feel Like Making Love, the Eugene McDaniels track. And Eugene McDaniels produces the album. I have to say, that track is the standout. It also has Steve Gadd kind of actually doing a very similar drum beat.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the
actually.
drums on that track are just standout. It's just so dynamic, amazing pressed rolls, and yeah, great. Yeah, definitely. This you can get this very cheap. I think I paid £2 for this. An absolute standout track. Yeah, and you know, Gladys Knight's got
It's gorgeous.
she's got a sweet voice, but she's got some real kind of edge to it as well.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of cracks a little bit. It's really lovely.
Yeah. Reading something about all the session people around that time, and this idea that quite a lot of the drummers particularly were doing so many sessions in different studios, they had kits set up in each of the studios, so they basically were plonking from one studio and playing on or whatever. So from Gladys to Aretha, and this is a kind of okay Aretha album from the late 70s, called Sweet Passion, and played the title track off the record. It was produced by Lamont Dozier, the record, and some of it works, some of it doesn't work so well. I do think, though, some of Aretha's 70s stuff is really underrated, actually. There's some good stuff there. So, yeah, but it kind of seemed to work quite well with the Gladys Knight tune.
Another purchase from my Bridport holiday. I didn't know anything about this album. It's the Duke Ellington and his orchestra album called Black, Brown and Beige. Basically, the story was that he created this piece sort of in the late 40s, and it's supposedly kind of telling the whole kind of evolution of black people in the States. So kind of quite an ambitious project, and didn't get that well received apparently. And then he redid it again and got Mahalia Jackson singing and just absolutely stunning. We listened to part 4, which is the first track on side 2. Really great stuff.
Yeah, amazing song. And you noticed how, in a way, it sounded a bit like Donny Hathaway as well. Donny Hathaway.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. Absolutely. Like you can really hear the roots of that sort of style of singing, that soulful style of singing. Beautiful.
So from Duke, dropped a generation and played a track off Archie Shepp's The Cry of the People, which was his, I think it was his either last or second to last album on Impulse. I think it either came just before or just after Attica Blues, which is of course a very famous one, and played the track called A Prayer, which is kind of gospel, again, quite gospel orientated track. Has a mixture of kind of people from the kind of free jazz end of things and also people like Bernard Purdie on there as well. So you've got but it really works, and there's a great arrangement, very good arrangement, and great production by Ed Michel, who I think always has been really underrated actually. So this was from about 1973, I think, on Impulse. A very good Archie Shepp record.
We were saying that there was some kind of Mingus-y influences in some of the kind of horn parts, and this was another Bridport purchase, an album that's, I think it's actually called Tijuana Gift Shop. Very sort of grand claim on the back from Charles Mingus himself. This is the best record I ever made. I think John wasn't convinced on the evidence of the track that I played.
Well, the ensemble stuff's sounding great, but the solos weren't that interesting.
But there's some nice stuff on it. So for me, I just love his playing and his composition. So great stuff.
Mind you wouldn't want to argue with Charles Mingus. He did say, if you were in a room with him, you'd say, yes, I think it is. Otherwise, you'd probably knock your teeth out. Then we had a kind of Freddie Hubbard kind of session, mini session. I don't know why we ended up upping a Freddie session, but we did.
It just happened.
And this is, I think, his second or third album on Blue Note, Ready for Freddie, with a great band with Bernard McKinney on euphonium, Wayne Shorter on tenor sax, McCoy Tyner on piano, Art Davis on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums, and played the track Birdlike off there, which is just incredibly confident kind of playing from somebody who was a very young man at the time, of course, as well, and a typically weird and great Wayne Shorter solo, which just kind of fizzles out into nothing in a wonderful way.
Yeah. We then had the first album that Freddie did on Blue Note called Open Sesame, and that was the track we listened to, first track on side 1.
Freddie had out anywhere, I think.
Absolutely blasts out. The kind of confidence of his playing and the sort of virtuosity is kind of breathtaking. This features Clifford Jarvis on drums, who John reminded me sort of ended up doing music workshops in London in the 80s.
Yeah, so I never quite understood how he ended up there.
But
yeah, great stuff. And then ended up with the third Freddie Hubbard, which wasn't the plan at all actually, but played a track of Backlash, which was his either first or second album on Atlantic, which was a label he went to after Blue Note and before CTI, and played the original version of Little Sunflower, which is, of course, is a bit of a kind of standard almost, really, in a way.
Oh, it is a standard, I'd say, yeah.
In a band with James Spaulding, very nice flute playing from James Spaulding on that track as well. So yeah.
Very beautiful track, very simple.
Excuse me.
Then a quick shout out to Diane, Digging in the Crate, because she showed this in her last video. It seemed very familiar, and John reminded me I actually already had it on a Best of Strata East CD.
And I played it at a session.
And John also played it at a session recently. But we listened to part 2 of the Smiling Billy Suite, which is a much sampled Mbira and drum and bass groove. It's really, really nice. Stanley Cowell, I think, on the thumb piano. Yeah, it's a great album. That's Marching On, it's called. And it's just recently been reissued. Very nice copy.
And I seem to remember it's one of Richard, the UK DJ's Giles Peterson's favourite tracks.
Is that?
Well, yeah, I think he loves that track. Went to see the film, finally got to see the film I Called Him Morgan, about Lee Morgan. Fantastic film, actually. I highly recommend it to anybody who gets a chance. I know it's on Netflix in the States, and I think it's coming on Netflix here as well. amazing cinematography, just a great film as well. So it was a good excuse to play a Lee Morgan track. Not that I need a particularly excuse to play a Lee Morgan track. And played the track Dear Sir, which came off the album called The Procrastinator, that wasn't originally released when it was recorded, and then ended up on this double, one of these Blue Note doubles, which came out I think in the 70s or 80s. But a great, I mean, actually for me it's almost my favourite Lee Morgan album. Band with Lee Morgan, Wayne Shorter again. The track was written by Wayne Shorter as well. Bobby Hutcherson, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter and Billy Higgins. So
what a band.
What a fantastic band.
That was a great track.
Great album. And I mean, this Tooth is really good, really worth getting as well. But the other album is equally good, actually, with Julian Priester and Mickey Roker and people on there as well. So Wayne Shorter, and do go and see the film. Really highly recommend it.
We were sort of in our wind down zone, and I just actually spotted this album from across the room, sitting on the shelf, and I suddenly thought, actually, I'd really like to hear the track Shadows from A Live Mother for You, which is a bit of a sort of super group.
Put together by the label, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So Billy Cobham, Steve Kahn, Alphonso Johnson, Tom Scott, and Mark Soskin. Yeah, some very sweet playing from Tom Scott. Very nice tune.
And of course, Tom Scott, who did lots of arrangements of Steely Dan. So there's the connection there. Then I was going to do 2 tributes, but I ended up only being able to do one because the amplifier blew up. But we had a slightly unsatisfactory playthrough of the track "Timeless" from the album called "Timeless" by John Abercrombie with Jan Hammer and Jack DeJohnette, and of course, very sadly, John Abercrombie died this week. And this is not only one of my favourite ECM records, it's one of my favourite records, actually. Really, in a way, it's like an organ trio lineup, really, with guitar, organ and drums, but it doesn't sound anything like a traditional organ trio.
It sounds incredibly ahead of its time.
Very ahead of its time. And they never really managed to make another album that's good at it. So, I mean, if you haven't got this, it's also been reissued, I think, on vinyl as well by ECM. But it's a great record, actually. One of my absolute favourites. And very sad that John Abercrombie's died, actually.
Very sad. Well, my attempt at playing this was even worse than the John Abercrombie. But this, I'm sure many people are picking up the Brian Eno half-speed, 45 RPM, 2-disc remastered at Abbey Road albums. They're actually very nice and really nicely put together. Lovely thing to own. We attempted to listen to their track Another Green World, but we kind of gave up within seconds because it sounded like the whole thing was being put through a distortion box. We then discovered my amp was searingly hot. It was beginning to melt CDs, so we curtailed the session a bit early. Yeah. But anyway,
so I would just briefly, I would have paid credit. I should have done it the last session, but I would have basically paid tribute to Jerry Allen, the pianist who died, also in the last 2 weeks as well. I mean, really far too young in her case. I mean, there was too young anyone dying really, but yeah, and she was a wonderful pianist and a really nice woman. I met her a couple of times, and very sad, very talented. Worked with Charlie Hayden, Paul Motion, all kinds of people. Really good. Another loss. Sorry, Mark.
That's all right. Well, that's it, folks.
Yep.
Keep letting us know if you like what we're doing.
And we look forward to seeing you in the morning
in Ramsgate. 11 o'clock. Final head. And the radio show on the 4th of September.
Yeah, that's more achievable.
Yes, it is. Cheers.
Good night.